Near the shores of Loch Corrib, near the village of Oughterard, County Galway, on the west coast of Ireland, there is a castle that few people know about. Hidden in the middle of the woods, along a small river, the castle is not the most impressive I've ever seen, but its history is full of conflict, and its strategic location made it the target of many takeovers. The family that built the castle lost it more than once, until a distant relative bought it back. However, even this wouldn't last, and the reason is not what you would expect. This is the dark history of Auchnanuir Castle. The castle was the seat of the ferocious O'Flaherty family for over 200 years. Now, who were the O'Flahertys, you ask? Well, this was the powerful family that controlled some 250,000 acres of land from around 1250 AD. For you to have an idea, this was most of West Connaught, which was one of the 4 provinces of Ireland at the time. Today, Connemara is in County Galway, but their kingdom stretched much farther back. The castle was built around 1490 as their main home. This was just one of 10 castles they owned, forming a perimeter around their lands, from which they kept a firm grip on the local population. It was their tradition to build their houses next to rivers, lakes, or even the coast, and the castle was built on an important trade route along the Drimney River. The family was once the most powerful and influential force in late medieval Gaelic Ireland. They were so cruel and feared that a gate is said to have been erected at the entry of the town of Galway to protect from the ferocious O'Flahertys. The name Auchnanuir comes from Irish for Castle of the Field of the Yews. A yew is a type of coniferous tree with red berry-like fruit. Most of them are poisonous, so don't go trying to eat them. The wood from these trees is ideal to make longbows, so they were highly valued at the time. The castle itself was built in 2 phases. First, they built the 6-story tower house with the inner walled enclosure, also called a bawn. And then, in the 16th century, they built the banquet hall, a round tower, and some other small buildings, and eventually the outer wall, or the outer bawn. With 6 floors, a banquet hall, and an underground stream, Auchnanuir Castle is an architectural marvel. At the southeast corner of the lower house, you'll find a narrow spiral staircase that accesses the upper chambers. And this was built with trick steps, so they are uneven in height and in width. And this was genius because anybody trying to run up or down these stairs would most likely trip and just tumble down. As I mentioned, the location was strategic, so it was an advantage for the family, but also this put a target on their house for invaders. In 1546, the O'Flaherty clan and the powerful O'Malley clan were joined in marriage. Donogh O'Flaherty married Grace O'Malley. Now, if that name sounds familiar, you're absolutely right. I'm talking about the pirate queen, Grace O'Malley. If you don't remember her, I mentioned her in the video about Howth Castle. Check that video out next if you haven't seen it already. Anyway, in 1572, the castle was captured by Sir Edward Fitton, President of Connaught, and granted to Murrough of the Battle Axis, a junior member of the family who was loyal to the crown. The family was shocked that one of their own had joined the Queen of England. Even more shocking, he was not even a chief of the clan. He was just a junior member. These were shameful times for the family, and he held it for 58 years until, in 1630, a scholar and writer called Roderick O'Flaherty, he petitioned to have the castle returned to the family, and he got it, and he held it for 22 years. Unfortunately, the family once again lost the castle. But during the rebellion of 1641, they occupied it again for a short time. If you remember from my other videos, in 1649, the English Parliament sent Oliver Cromwell to reconquer Ireland. These were dark times for Ireland, and it was very barbaric. During the invasion, however, Auchnaure Castle kept Galway supplied, and this lasted until 1652, when the city finally surrendered and the castle was abandoned. A short time later, the O'Flahertys bought it back. However, they would lose it again, and amazingly this time, it wasn't because of an invasion or war, it was simply because they didn't pay their mortgage. At this time, the lender, Lord St. George, took possession of it, and for the next 280 years, the castle would change hands many times, with the O'Flahertys buying it back, selling it, buying it back, losing it, over and over again. It seems like they couldn't keep their hands on that castle. In a last attempt to bring it back to the family, in 1932, kind of recent, about 100 years ago, a distant relative of the original O'Flahertys, a young lawyer or solicitor called Peter O'Flaherty of Enniscorthy, County Wexford, bought the castle back. However, it was not in his hands for long, and in 1952, a mere 20 years later, he decided that the best way to preserve his family's history would be to donate the castle to the state. Since then, the castle has been under the ownership and control of the Office of Public Works, OPW, the Irish government's body responsible for national monuments and historic properties. Maybe he didn't want it falling into the wrong hands again after he passed, or maybe the property taxes were too high, but in any case, it seems this gave him peace of mind, because sadly he passed away a short time after signing the documents. I would say his decision was a wise one, because it was fully restored between 1960 and 1974, and after 200 years it was abandoned, it is now open to the public. Unfortunately, the banquet hall was too far gone to be restored. But you can visit and see the carvings and imagine how beautiful it must have been back in the day. Now, if you made it this far into the video, then a sub to the channel would be equally ferocious. Also, click on that like button and leave a comment. These are the best ways to help my channel grow. Now, back to the story. You're probably wondering why this family was so feared, or even why were they so important in the history of Ireland? Well, let me tell you more about them. There was a really interesting incident in 1484 when the, quote, modest and civil people of Galway represented the O'Flahertys to Pope Innocent VIII as, and I quote, mountainous and wild people, by whom they were sometimes robbed of their goods and killed by those unlearned men. On another occasion, they referred to them as their rude, barbarous neighbors. And then again in the 16th century, there was another case in which the mayor of Galway, he complained to the English council about the O'Malleys and the O'Flahertys, that they were robbing the ships that were bound for Galway, which was considered a poor town, and they were really going through hard times because of this. Now, the Irish clans have always been at war with each other, and it was always a story of one taking over the other one's land and then fighting to get it back and things like that, and it was no different with the O'Flahertys. They had been kicked out of their lands and pushed all the way west of Lough Corrib, and so they owned from the west of Lough Corrib all the way to the Atlantic coast. At that time, money was in the sea, and whoever controlled access to the sea had the money, and Galway Bay was controlled by the O'Flaherty clan, and this made them powerful and rich. Another advantage was that they were pretty far from the English that were on the east coast. However, their reign of terror ended after King Henry VIII of England came to power. The Battle of Kinsale in 1601 marked the beginning of the decline of their power. In this battle, the English defeated the Irish that were led by Hugh O'Neill and Hugh Roe O'Donnell. This was not only the end of the Irish rule of the island, but it also resulted in devastating the traditional Irish culture and the way of life. As with any castle with hundreds of years of history, there is bound to be at least a few ghost stories, right? Several visitors have reported hearing the sound of someone choking. One visitor even called the tour guide to ask for help, but they could not find anyone in need of help. Another visitor claimed he saw a ghost, and upon describing it, they think it might have been a former groundskeeper roaming the castle grounds. The Galway Bio, a local newspaper, reported on January 4, 2023, that a head was seen rolling across the floor with the same sound of someone choking in the background. One of the castle's most famous features is the infamous trapdoor in the banquet hall. Now, this is just amazing, and it's one of my favorite things about the castle. Legend has it that after a particular battle, the O'Flaherty clan had to surrender to the 4th Earl of Clanricarde, Richard Burke, who sent his son to the castle to collect the tribute. Coincidence or not, Burke was standing over the infamous Flagstone of Treachery, which turned on its axis and plunged him deep into the flowing river beneath the castle. Maybe it's his ghost that's haunting the castle. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Not only that, but there even have been reports of the wails of a banshee on the property. If you don't know what a banshee is, it's an Irish mythological creature, and if you hear her wails, someone is going to die. So you might want to be careful if you visit the castle. Today, Aughnmore Castle is the only intact medieval castle in Connemara. It has been beautifully restored, and you can visit for a very low entrance fee. This, in my opinion, is one of the best hidden gems in an idyllic scenario near Loch Corrib, which is visited by thousands every day. Loch Corrib is a beautiful location in itself, and there are several other castles around it, such as the luxurious and very private Ashford Castle. I hope to do a video on this amazing place soon. For more Irish history, landmarks, and explorations, check out the playlists on my channel and keep on watching. The more you watch, the more you will see of my content in your feed. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this castle. If you visited Aughnmore Castle, let me know of your experience. I really enjoy hearing your stories. Now, if you have a little more time and you want to hear the amazing story of an Irish castle full of tragedy and history, check out my video on Calmore Abbey next. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you over there.